of the Conservative Discussions Club. It's not the Civil Discussion Club or any other discussion. It is the Conservative Discussion Club. I'd like to ask everybody to please stand to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to welcome everyone. My name is Neil Rayfield. I'm the president of the club, and I will be the moderator of tonight's meeting. I want to introduce the other officers of the club. We have Donald Gabin, the executive vice president, and Jerry Morelli, she's the secretary. And I want to thank Diana Rayfield and Vinny for greeting everybody as they come in and kind of handing out information. A copy of the club's mission policy statement was handed out, or they're actually on the table. And this mission statement reads, the CDC was established to give Valencia Lakes residents the opportunity to learn about American conservative principles and how these fundamental ideas apply to important issues that are impacting the country. The club is not political and does not support any political party or candidate. The statement goes on to list these conservative principles. This paper was created to bring clarity to the purpose of the club. As he stated at the last meeting, we're still looking for members to join the management team, and we want people who are interested in building a successful club. The following positions are open: program manager, communication manager, membership manager. If you're interested in any of these positions, please see me after the meeting. You resign? Tomorrow. There's a silver SUV Z7TG EDG in a handicapped spot, and it shouldn't be there.
It's in the stripes of the handicap spot.
It's in the stripes of the it's an automobile, obviously.
It's a Kia.
Yeah, probably nobody in this group would park illegally. Probably have to go out to that, the Democrat club is down the road. We abide by the rules. We believe in the rule of law. Sorry to bother you. A questionnaire was handed out that will assist the club in offering the best possible experience at these memberships meetings. Your input is important for us to achieve this goal. Please fill out the questionnaire and either hand it in after the meeting or reply online. I will soon be sending out the third edition of the Items of Interest series that advances the understanding of conservative political philosophy. This edition focuses on important current issues that could have tremendous impact on our system of government. Number one, the possibility that the national popular vote could replace the electoral college system. Number two, the packing of the Supreme Court. So these are two very interesting articles. Then there's also going to be an article on the opioid crisis titled Overdosing on Regulation, How the Government Caused the Opioid Crisis. Very interesting. I will now review the format of tonight's meeting. After the speaker is finished with his presentation, there will be a question and answer period. And time permitting, there will be an open discussion. And now I'd like to introduce our guest speaker of the evening, Mr. Brett Bartlett, retired from the Tampa Police Department with almost 32 years of service at the rank of captain. He holds a Master's of Education degree from Northwestern State University, Louisiana, and other master's level work in criminal justice from Florida State University and St. Leo University, and a Bachelor of Arts degree in criminology from St. Leo University. One of Brett's duties with the Tampa Police Department was lead firearms instructor, and he was responsible for developing and delivering firearms instruction. Brett is currently owner of Ex-Umbra Defense Solutions, a Florida licensed private investigative and security agency. He is a licensed private investigator, security officer, and statewide firearms instructor. And Mr. Bartlett is also a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. So, heck of a resume. So, Brett, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Hey, y'all, thanks for having me. Can you hear me without it?
No.
All right, I'll do the best I can. I don't want to overbear on you. So,
Hold that up a little bit higher and straight out.
all right, how about that? I just don't want to overmodulate. I tell you, when I hear other people reading stuff I've done, I go, wow, that's some pretty neat stuff. I don't consider myself any better than anybody else. I just had a great career with Tampa Police Department. I had some great leadership. One of the people I used to drive around a patrol car with is about to become the mayor of Tampa here in a few months. I've got stories on her if you ever need to. We rode south end of Tampa for a couple of years. So the issue tonight is guns. I'm thinking I'm in a friendly environment for that. Would that be true? Friendly, yeah, friendly fire zone. Can I guess that we're all pro Second Amendment? Pretty much all pro constitutionalists? Strict constitutionalists. Because there's really no other way, is there? There's been a lot of discussion lately about what some of the election in Florida has brought to us. You know, we have a new Department of Agriculture commissioner, and depending on what you hear, what you believe, maybe she's anti-gun, or not pro-gun, I should say, not anti-gun. I had a meeting last week with the new division of licensing head for Tampa, the person that oversees concealed carry licenses and PI license and stuff like that. I got a really good feeling that everything's still going to be okay because the law is the law. The legislative branch, of course, makes a law, and the executive branch, they carry out the law. So I don't see where there's going to be any huge problems. They have to carry out the laws. But, and I imagine this is also true for you folks, that you have on your speed dial, on your phone, the numbers for people who represent you in Tallahassee and in Washington, D.C. Would that be true? All right. Get up on it. Get up on it. We have to participate in this. So, I've been teaching guns for 30 plus years. A friend of mine got me involved with teaching guns in Tampa Police. I was the lead instructor for Tampa Police for about 12 years teaching guns. I still compete in competitions, pistol and rifle competitions. I teach concealed carry classes. I've got probably 9,000 students in the last, I think I've been doing it about 10 years. So I feel pretty good about delivering a good product to people who want to come and learn about guns, because I know this, a lot of people in this room, you're not from Florida, that'd be correct? And by the time I get done teaching my concealed carry class, talking about Florida law, here's what I hear. Holy crap. Where have you been all my life? Because every state is so different when it comes to the firearm laws, and I don't know. I know that, you know, in some of the northeastern states, New York, Massachusetts, they don't really care about guns that much. They're anti-gun in a lot of ways. And I don't know where that mindset comes from. I don't understand. Maybe it's a cultural thing. When I was raised in Florida, I lived in Lutz up in Hillsborough County, and from the age of 9 or 10 years old, I had a gun in my hand. I'd be out in the back shooting. And it was kind of weird because my dad was not a gun owner. He was very much pro-gun. He was a lifetime NRA member that never owned a gun. But he always thought it was very, very important that people should be able to exercise their Second Amendment rights. I think our Second Amendment rights are under attack right now. Would that be, everybody kind of agree with that? I mean, I'm a one-issue voter, and that's guns. But I think we're a president and a couple of senators away from losing gun rights. Because they're being openly talking about, well, the Second Amendment doesn't really, you know, we probably don't need that. We've evolved. Nobody really needs guns in our society. I don't think so. I think evil exists. Now tyranny exists now. It existed back then. They used to wear red coats. Now they wear pinstripe coats. Almost got an amen from some of you. I'm fairly certain of that. So I almost asked you how many own guns, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, some of you. All right, so you guys own guns? All right. AR-15? Right on. Right on. All right, here's a trivia question for you. What does AR stand for in AR-15? Negative. I'm going to teach you something new. Army Light, who said it? Raise your hand, sir. I'll give you some tater later on. The company that invented that firearm way back in the late 50s, early 60s was called Armalite. First two letters of which are? AR. So somebody lied to you. Huh. Somebody in the government lied to you. I won't ask you who has more than 30 guns. I'll raise my own hand. Well, I don't have any other hobbies. I don't own a boat. I don't fish. I don't hunt. I don't do anything. I'm like a gun hoarder. I'm going to be on that show one day when they come to clean my house out and they take the guns out, and I'm going to go in and go, you know, I think I need that one right there. Put that back in the house. How many guns can you own? As you want. As you can afford. Sure. How much ammunition can you own? Does the state of Florida have any laws about how many guns you can own? No. This is Florida. Welcome aboard. Do we register guns in Florida? We do not. We do not register guns in Florida. Because as it says in the statute that talks about the fact that we don't register guns, 790.335, just a little piece of trivia, it says that a list could become an instrument for profiling, harassing, or abusing you. That's why we don't have gun registration in Florida. Do criminals register their guns? How weird. It's the same reaction I get from everybody I ask. So why do some states require that you register your firearms? You're stupid, I got you, okay. Sure. We don't register guns in Florida. How many guns can you have in your car in Florida? Come on now, this is Florida, don't go cheap. As you can fit. Afford, fit, afford. Because in the Florida statute, there's no law that says how many you can own, how many you can have in your car, or how many guns you can have on you walking around. You can have as many guns on you as you want you walking around. I know you're not going to carry more than one because most people don't. But how many guns do law enforcement officers typically carry these days? Two. And what do they call that gun? The backup gun, sure. So understand the police are going to get in fights, they're going to lose their gun, the gun's going to get taken away, it's going to break, it's going to run out of ammunition, their primary shooting hand gets disabled. That's why they carry the second gun. But most folks like yourselves won't carry a second gun, but you certainly could. How many of you carry a knife? Carry a knife. Well, why do you carry a knife? Because the cheesecake knife always gets nasty up pretty quick, so you need to have something nice and sharp. How many of you have, if you're comfortable answering this, how many of you have concealed carry permits? Okay. Did anybody get your training up at Shoot Straight up in Tampa off 301? No. 301. Shooter's World, okay, also a great place up there. Where's that, sir? Army? Yeah, according to Florida law, if you have been a member of the armed services, when you make application for your concealed carry permit, you can use your DD-214 as proof of having had training. There's a movement afoot in Tallahassee. 2 or 3 hours with me, I can teach you how to handle a firearm. But from citizen to citizen, who are they to tell me what I need in order to carry a firearm? Because what's my original concealed carry license? What does it say? Second Amendment? You guys heard in the news lately that a lot of states have gone to what they call constitutional carry. I think it's up to 16 states now. I think almost just the most recent one. So there's a trend now to go to what's called permitless carry. And then the point is, you're over 21 or 18 or whatever that state says, and you don't have a, it never leaves committee, and I don't think it will. still have a pro-gun legislature, certainly a pro-government legislature. So if any of these points prompted any thoughts yet? How many of you want a gun, but you're not sure what to do? How do you go about it? Okay. Do you believe that people should have 2 days of training like some states require?
No.
I don't either, sir. You do? All right. What if you're having a bad day and you don't pass that course?
That's questionable, but let me
Yeah.
ask this, do you think a 3-hour course at Shoot Straight is going to answer that question also?
We do what we do within the law. I don't think permits should be even necessary.
Can you repeat the question part?
The question, could you go ahead and repeat your answer?
Do you believe a 3-hour course, a 3-hour session will answer a lot of these problems?
A lot of the questions, yeah. Now, the courses that I teach, we spend most of our time talking about what Florida state statute says. Because people bring to the class a lot of misconceptions, and we'd rather spend our time talking about what state law says, because whose responsibility is it for you to get better with your gun? It's yours. It's yours. How do you do that? You go practice, you go get some training, you get better and better. We have a lot of misconceptions. Have you ever heard that if you shoot a bad guy in the house and he falls out in the yard, you got to drag him back in the house? I know somebody must have heard this. Yeah, let's say no.
No.
Yeah, when you get a chance to write that down, write down no. So we spend a lot of time talking about what state laws are because you really can't go get that a lot of different places.
Are you saying you're not supposed to drag him back in the house?
No, ma'am, flip that over, right? Don't touch the guy in the head. No. But you've heard that, haven't you?
Hundreds of times.
Yeah. So we spend our time in that class talking about the myths and misconceptions about what people believe about gun laws in the state of Florida. And me and the guys I teach with, we're all cops or ex-cops. We bring a very unique, real-world perspective to what the gun laws are in the state of Florida. Well, how many hours would it take for you to get good with your gun?
I think more practice on a range,
More practice on the range. How many hours? How many rounds?
depends upon the individual.
It depends, sure. Good, absolute great answer. Depends on the individual. If there were 10 firearm instructors up here talking about how many hours it would take to get good with your gun, how many rounds it would take, and how many answers you would get, you'd get 10. When I teach police academies, I have those young'uns for 80 hours. 80 hours. God bless their little young hearts. And they're worn slap out. 80 hours. Is that reasonable for y'all, 80 hours? Would it be reasonable for me, for state law, to say, you gotta be there 80 hours? How about 40 hours? 20? So we don't know, do we? We don't really know. When you consider that a lot of states are going permitless carry, constitutional carry, why would we go backwards and say you fire so many rounds, you have to fire a score? And who gets to decide that? The people up there that, well, some of you know them. From a training perspective, I would love to spend a day or two with you, all of you, but from a citizen perspective, I don't think they should be allowed to dictate what I need to do in order to exercise my Second Amendment rights. Do I have to go to school to learn how to speak? Exercise my First Amendment rights. As long as I don't yell fire in a crowded theater, yeah, something like that. Or theater in a crowded firehouse, something like that. So we all have different opinions about should there be a number of hours, how many rounds should it take, knowing this. Who's to say? Because it's all based on the individual. So again, I agree with you from a training perspective. Spend more time on the range. From a citizen perspective, they're gonna tell me, why not 60 rounds? If they're talking about 50 now, why not 60? Why not 70? Why not 100? If we're gonna go 50, let's go 100. And if it's 3 hours now, let's make it 8 hours. But why not 10 hours? And the point is, nobody really knows your own needs, your own abilities, except you guys. How many of you carry guns in your cars? Again, if you're not comfortable answering, I understand completely. Believe me, just kind of give me the the bid house nod or hold up your number or something. Do you have to have a license, concealed carry license, to have a gun in your car in Florida? You do not. Yeehaw. How many guns can you have in your car in Florida? You won't. Fill the trunk. I think this, though, when the body's riding down on the tires, you need to take some of that stuff out, put it back in there. Where can you carry, oh, go ahead, sir, I'm sorry.
Guns in the car,
Guns in the car.
can they be loaded?
Yes, the gun can be loaded in the car. Everybody hear that? The question was, can it be loaded? Yes, it can. Here's a weird thing about Florida law, which, in case you want to look it up, chapter 790, we'll call that the gun chapter. The word loaded is not defined in the gun chapter. Of all the stuff that should be defined, it's not, and I'm okay with that. So when people ask me, can I have a round in my chamber? Can I have a magazine in my gun? My answer is, I don't know. Because there's no definition of the word loaded in chapter 790, which is the gun chapter. Now, I'll get one second. Having an unloaded gun is not that smart, is it? I mean, load a bad boy, man.
So if you can carry a gun that's loaded in your car
Yep.
without a concealed carry, then why
Yep.
do we get a concealed carry?
The question is, if I can have a gun in my car without a permit, why do I need the permit? Here's why. So you can walk to your car with a gun concealed on you, drive around with the gun concealed on you, and then walk away from the car with the gun concealed. Great question, though.
On your body?
Heck yeah, I almost said something. Heck yeah.
Excuse me, Brett, let's hold the questions off until the question and answer period, because I know there's a lot that Brett wants to get through, and we're not going to get to it if we're interrupting him with questions. Thank you.
And I'll ask this rhetorically, you don't have to. What do you do when you get pulled over? By the police, I say the police, because the police will, they'll take the report for your bike theft, the police will lock you up. Big difference. Big difference.
Tell them where your gun is.
So do you tell them or not?
Yes.
Say again?
I hand my concealed carry permit with my license.
Well, here's a couple of things. And again, I feel like I'm prompting questions, but feel free to answer. Nothing in the law, state law, says you have to tell the policeman there's a gun in your car. Now, some states that's not the case, right? If you come from other states where you have to raise your hand and go serve and let you know you got a gun in your car. Some states are like that, that's fine, whatever they want to do. But in Florida, you don't have to tell them anything, because why would you? You're not breaking any laws. For fun, go up to the next sheriff you see out here and go up and just go, sorry, I just want to let you know I'm not breaking the law, and just turn around and walk away. They're going to go, what the hell? You're not breaking the law, so why would you? The next question I get asked a lot, because we're talking about guns and cars and the police, is, based on my experience, don't I think it's a good idea to tell them? And I absolutely do not. I do not. What one word is going to complicate the day? What one word is going to complicate this encounter? Gun. Oh. Back when I was a young officer south of Gandy Boulevard, if I pulled you over, sir, and you said, I got a gun in my car, I'd go, cool, what do you got? Well, you got a Glock, you the man, get on out of here, you all right? But what about this? We have a different generation out there. And say the word gun might lead to Man, get out of your car. Step out of your car, push against the top of your head. I'm calling Matt Gill for an airstrike. We'll see it coming right over here. I don't think it's a good idea to say it. So the other question that follows all this up is, what if they ask me, ma'am, is there a fireman in your vehicle? Sir, is there a fireman in your vehicle? This is going to floor you. I'm going to let you stew over this because there's going to be a lot of harumphing and you're not required to answer any questions. Yeah, I'm going to let that sink in just for a second. You're not required to answer any questions. Does that surprise you? Does that surprise you at all? And they know, because I used to be the police. My son's a policeman. He's got 14 years with Tampa Police. I got to taser my own kid. Parents, I'll let that sink in. You'll thank me later. And I've had this discussion with him, and because I want to be, because I address groups like this all the time. I teach this all the time. I want to know what the current thinking is out there. Maybe I'm missing something. And I asked my son, I've asked other officers, if you pulled somebody over and they wouldn't answer your questions, what would you do? And he says, because this is the truth, they don't have to talk to me, Dad. There's no requirement to talk to me. They don't have to answer my questions. I said, what would you do? I said, I'd write a ticket or not and go about my day. Oh. Did you all know that? Some states, maybe, I don't know if any other states in Florida, there's no requirement to answer any questions. Now, I'm going to pause here. I'm going to add this to this conversation. Do what's good for you at that particular moment. Can you remember that? Do what's good. Say what's good for you, do what's good for you. But somebody here wanted to know, if they ask me questions, do I have to answer them? Does somebody want to know that? You ever wanted to know that? You don't have to say anything. But do what is good for you, because you can't hire me as your getting pulled over coach. You know, 3 months down the road, it finally happens. Oh, Brett, finally, all that money. Yeah, but here's what you say, here's what you do. You don't have to say anything. I don't think it's a great idea to say anything. You don't have to answer any questions. Who's ever been pulled over by the police? More than once? Oh, okay. There's a pattern developing. Does this sound familiar? Does this sound familiar to you? Do you know why I pulled you over? Sound familiar? You know, they don't need your input, right? They don't need your input, so why do they ask you? What is it? Self-confession? Yeah, because you will once you, God bless you, all honest and faithful, you'll rat yourself right out every time. Here's a reason why law enforcement officers ask you questions at the window of your vehicle. Here's why. It's because that's what you pay them for. You pay them to ask questions and talk to other people, don't you? That's the job. The job is this: a law enforcement officer encountering another human being and talking to them, asking them questions. So if they don't ask you questions, they're not doing a very good job. But they know you don't have to answer those questions. But why do they ask you anyway? It's their job. It's their job. Sir, you know I pulled you over? I was speeding. Got a cracked taillight. Got a dead body in the trunk. Something you're going to tell them. Maybe not that. But I know, because I teach to a lot of different groups, that some people think, well, if I don't tell them, if I don't answer these questions, I'm in trouble and they're going to get mad. Does that sound like something you might be thinking right now? Okay. My last year at Tampa, I was a captain of internal affairs. You ever heard of internal affairs? And I'm going to say this with all sincerity. Do with it as you wish. Their mad doesn't count. Are they supposed to take actions based on anger? No, supposed to take action based on the law. But again, I'm not out there with you. I'm not your getting pulled over coach. And I'll say this again, I say to everybody who asks me this question, what do I do? And my response is, do what's good for you. Sir, may I search your vehicle?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Sir, may I search your vehicle? You're getting pulled over. May I search your vehicle, sir? Just take a minute. What would your answer be? Okay. Right on? No. No. Yeah, say it again.
Get a search
Get a search warrant, yeah. That's your inside voice. Your outside voice is, sir, not today, but you know, I got it. And they know they have to have sufficient probable cause or search warrant to search your vehicle. Well, why do they ask you anyway? Because that's their job. That's their job. Get consent. If you give consent to search your vehicle or your house, which of the amendments have you waived? The big four. And permanent search warrant. Have a great day. Say again? Yeah. Because if you give permission for somebody to search a car and they find something that's of illegal nature, isn't that a perfectly good search? Because you waive any right you want, can't you? Sure you can. I'm going to tell you a story. A lot of people don't believe this is true, but it's absolutely true. Talking about the fact that you have a right to say no or yes. There was a young man in South Tampa. I put him in prison years ago for dealing drugs, and now he's out walking around. First time I've seen him since he's been out of prison. I knew he was out of prison. Haven't seen him. I knew he was not on probation. He's on nothing. Walking around the neighborhood. He has an absolute right to walk around his own neighborhood. Heck yeah. I, in turn, have a right to go up talk to him because that's my assigned area. And what is it you pay law enforcement officers to do? Go talk to people. So I went up to this young man. His name was Red. I don't know if that was his nickname or real name. I said, hey, Red, I see you're out of prison. No way to start a conversation. Now, I wasn't on Red's Christmas card list. He said something like, yeah, you know, he didn't care for me too much. I took 5 years away from him. And he was standing there with a big shaving kit looking thing in his hands. And there was something in it. Now, what's my job at this point? To ask him, hey, what's that? Now, what is he free to tell me at this point? Nothing. He can be nasty if he wants to. Now, I'm not allowed to get mad. I can't make decisions on anger. He could call me all kinds of nasty names, and I'd have to suck it up because I had nothing, y'all. It's called a casual encounter. It'd be like when I met you at the front door and asked you were a terrorist. Here's what he did. He looked down at that little satchel-looking thing, looked up at me, and handed it to me, and said, it's not mine. So I had a rookie with me, brand new kid, and the kid whispers, is it really this easy? I said, shut up. So I opened this thing, and old Red had a pound of weed in there. Well, he ran off. We caught him, and we put him back in prison. Because he said what to me? Yes. When he could have said no. So when you get pulled over, and you will, and they know that you don't have to give consent, why do they ask you anyway? Sir, may I search your vehicle? Why are they doing that, y'all? What's the purpose? That's their job. Can I search your car? Where are you headed? Where are you coming from? Do you work? Where do you go? Do you work? All kinds of questions. But a lot of people on the floor, especially from other states, don't get the fact that you don't have to answer any questions at the window of the vehicle. But I want you, when you ever get a chance, I want you to write something down. Here it is. When you get pulled over, do what is good for you. Does that sound fair? Do what is good for you, because I'm not with you. Do what is good for you. So, guns in the car. Where can you keep guns in the car and you don't need a permit? Here's a list. In the glove compartment, whether or not locked. Door has to be closed. Closed, not locked. Because if it had to be locked, what are the odds of you getting that gun out when it's time? Really? Zero? Do you even know if you have a lock on your glove compartment? Do you know where the key is? If you have a key, where is it? So your key ring in the ignition. So you don't have to lock it, but you have to close it. The next place is, it can be snapped in a holster. Now the operative word in that paragraph is snapped in. Keep in mind, back when this law was written, snapping a gun in, that's almost all there was. But now there's all kinds of devices on guns to hold the gun in the holster. As long as the gun is held in by some device that you have to manipulate with your hand to get the gun out, it counts. But isn't it true you can buy holsters that don't have any device on them? There's no way those will count. But what's neat is, once the gun is snapped in a holster, if you choose to have it on the seat next to you, perfectly fine. Now, is that a great place to carry your firearm? No, because if you need the gun, that means you probably hit the brakes. Where's your gun now? Yeah, it's gone. But you could. Now, can that gun be loaded in the car? Yes. Because there's no definition of it. No law says yes, no law says no. So, yeah, it can be loaded. How many loaded guns can you have in your car? You want, thank you. But again, and back to your question, if I can do all these things in the car, why do we need a permit? And I want to make sure you get this. It's so that you can walk around with a gun concealed on you, drive around in the car with a gun concealed on you, and then leave your car with a gun concealed on you. Because what if you have to get out of that car pretty quick? Don't you want to have your firearm with you? So that's why you need a permit. It's a great question. Can you have rifles or shotguns in your vehicle? How many of y'all from old Florida? Been here for a long time. Remember those days? Pickup trucks, what do you see in the back window? Rifle, shotgun. You don't see that much anymore, do you? Because people are afraid to show the bad guy where their firearms are. It's still perfectly legal. It was then, it still is, to have a rifle or shotgun in your vehicle, no restrictions, period. How many rifles or shotguns can you have in your vehicle? As you want. Can they be loaded? Sure they can. Yeehaw, welcome aboard. I feel like I'm giving a welcoming speech to people who are from up north. Welcome to Florida. You know, like north of Ocala, you know, the Yankees, you know. Because I get a lot of people in my classes from the states, New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Maryland, and some of them are absolutely astonished the rights that you have here in Florida to own guns, carry guns, and more importantly, use guns. You guys ever heard of the Stand Your Ground law? Okay. You've also heard this, people in Tallahassee. Oh, we need to get rid of that. You ever heard that as well? That gives you permission to shoot anybody you want. Does it really? Of course not. What it means is this, and I'm going to quote the law, chapter 776, if you want to do your Google. If you have a reasonable belief that you're in imminent fear of death or great bodily harm, then you can stand your ground and meet force with force, including deadly force, if that's what you believe is necessary. It doesn't say you can go out and shoot anybody you want. Well, that guy, he got mad, so I can shoot him. Of course not, y'all. That's ridiculous. But why shouldn't we have the lawful authority to deal with the deadly force threat now, when it's in front of me, rather than having to back up and back up and back up? Because when you're backing up, what are you likely to do? Yeah, wouldn't that be pretty embarrassing if you tripped and fell? I don't even know if I go to the emergency room after something like that. I had to get shot. I shot myself from 25 feet away. Yeah, it's all me. That'd be so embarrassing. So the standard is reasonable belief. Reasonable belief in that statute, it doesn't mean a 100% belief, because how could it? If you come around the corner and there's somebody has a gun stuck in your face, do you have a reasonable belief that you're in imminent fear of death or grave bodily harm?
Yes.
I think we do. What if you come around and there's a knife stuck to your throat? Do you have a reasonable belief that you're in imminent fear of death or grave bodily harm?
Yes.
Sure. And if they take that stand your ground away, what would you have to do at this point? You'd have to back up and back up and back up. Seems pretty silly. You can, oh, sorry, Mr. Microphone. You can use deadly force to prevent the imminent commission of a forcible felony. Here's the first one. Now, don't jump up and scream. Here's the first one, treason. Just stay seated. That's the very first forcible felony listed in that statute, along with murder, manslaughter, aggravated battery, kidnapping, all kinds of these things. I always wondered why, I'd love to find out why they put treason first. What was the thought? It's not even alphabetical. If it was stuck in the middle under, where the S and the T is, I could get it. What if the gun stuck in your face turned out to be a toy gun?
Doesn't matter.
Does that change your reasonable belief? Doesn't change anything, does it? What if it was a real gun but wasn't loaded? Does that change your reasonable belief?
No.
Because how could you possibly know? You don't have to go, oh, Mr. Bad Guy, would you just let me investigate? I'll take a quick peek, and he's going to go, yeah, hurry up, because we're going to do this thing. Did you guys see the video from Clearwater about 4 or 5 months ago? Where a guy got pushed to the ground. He fired the shot. What do you think? Good or bad? Did he have a reasonable belief that he was in imminent fear of death or grave bodily harm at that point? No. Yeah, it's up to the prosecutor to have it. But here's what we're so prone to do, and this, we shouldn't do this. When we see the video, what do we always say? Oh, I would do that, or I would do that. Oh, you don't know what you would do. Now, what does the camera not show? When you see these videos, what does the camera not show? Okay, before, after. How about this? It doesn't show fear, does it? It doesn't show state of mind. Absolutely, yeah. It doesn't show what's going on inside the person's head, because isn't there only one truth out there on any topic? There's only one truth. So why is it that we all give a different opinion to the whatever the truth is? Because we're all different people. And so you bring to this a viewpoint. You guys ever been shoved to the ground? Pretty hard shoved to the ground? It ain't fun, y'all. I've had maybe this guy knocked his head. Maybe, who knows? Now, he went to trial for manslaughter. So he's going to go to trial. He's going to have a jury of his peers, and they're going to decide is he guilty or not. And that's the way it's supposed to work. The sheriff presents evidence to the state brings it to trial, and a jury of his peers are going to decide if he's guilty or not. I think he's going to walk. If he gets a good expert witness, he's going to walk. He hired me now. He hired me to walk. Because I've been trained to know that when you're in a deadly force encounter, the things that you're seeing, the things that you think you're seeing, may not be the truth as far as these other disinterested people are. Now, of course, everybody else who was there said, you shouldn't have done that. The guy was turning away. Remember that part of the conversation? But what if in this guy's mind, the guy that got shoved down, what if in his mind, in his mind's eye, he actually saw the guy turning towards him? Because he's not lying. That's what he perceived. You have to give weight to that. What about the shooting in the theater in Pasco County about 4 years ago there? You guys hear about that? Retired Tampa police captain. And I got more than one call that day, y'all, because I'm in Pasco County too. Hey, was that Brett? And we see the video, and we say what? Well, that ain't right. How do you know? How do you know? Because what does the video not show? It doesn't show fear, it doesn't show emotion. Listen, if the gentleman goes to trial, he'll have to live with that. There's not going to be any good outcome. No matter what happens, nothing's going to be fixed. Nobody's going to be brought back to life. He's not going to be made whole, and all that money he spent on attorney is not going to go back to him.
They still haven't tried him.
That's correct.
Were they waiting for him to die so they don't have to?
Well, you kind of wonder. Well, yeah, he's not healthy, but you know, they changed some of the verbiage in the Stand Your Ground law about a year or 2 years ago. It put more of the burden on the state, which is good because that's where the burden should be. And it changed the whole dynamics of the thing. So last I heard, they're waiting for a case like that they can take up to an appellate or a Florida Supreme Court and get a ruling. And how long is that going to take? You know, just like you said. Just like you said. I saw the video, and who saw the video of the shooting up in the Pasco Theater? Okay. Really? We're going to rely on that grainy video? And video does not show what was going on in the captain's mind when that man was turning towards him. But if he goes to trial, he'll have to deal with the juror's fear. That's the way it's supposed to work, y'all. So, what if the bad guy's in your house? Is it any different? A little bit different. Different statute, 776.013. In that case, and this is right out of the statute, feel free to look it up, chapter 776, justifiable use of force. It says, if a bad guy is trying to or did come into a residence, dwelling, or occupied vehicle without permission, because that's kind of the way it is, unlawfully, using force, the state law in that statute says you have a right to believe two things. First thing you have a right to believe is that person's going to hurt you. Because isn't that what history tells us? And that's in the statute. The second thing you have a right to believe is that you're in fear of death or great bodily harm. And this is why you don't have to drag a bad guy back in the house if he's I have no other information at all, ever.
Okay, I guess Brett could go on.
For a while, he has a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience, and he's also entertaining. So, did a great job. Now we're going to open the floor up to a Q&A. And so what we're going to do now, Jerry Morelli and myself will come into the audience. Please raise your hand. Wait until we come to you. And this way everybody will hear your question because we'll bring the microphone over. Okay. We'll start with the B's.
Can you repeat what you can do?
Can you repeat your answers on use of lethal force when somebody's in your house without permission, because you were turning away and I didn't quite hear you?
Yeah, sure. Well, first, the controlling law is 776.0. 776, I'm used to testifying before. 776.013. So feel free to Google it. If it's happening inside a dwelling, residence, or occupied vehicle, and if the bad guy enters unlawfully, using force, now, you ever heard breaking and entering? You ever heard that phrase? It's not in Florida law. You don't have to break anything. Opening a door is force. Opening a window is force. That statute says, and it says you have two presumptions. The first presumption is you have a right to believe that person's going to hurt you. It's a presumption that you're given, because that's what history tells us. The second presumption is that you are in fear of death or great bodily harm. That's what it says. So if you step out of your hallway and there's a stranger staring at you, thank goodness you don't have to come out with a question list and go, sir, I just need to ask you a couple of quick questions. Are you here to hurt me? You know, do you have, and he's going to go down, let me out there. But the presumption is that if somebody's in your house without permission, having used any level of force to get in there, that you're allowed to use deadly force to make that stop. That's what, that's 776.013. And I encourage you guys to look this up, because how many have a permit? A lot of you. When you sign that form, somewhere in the bottom, it says that I have read and am familiar with Florida state statute. So it might be a good time to go find it.
Okay.
Okay, just so you know, you taught my concealed weapon class.
Is that right?
Yeah, but I do have a question for you, just for context. You talk about the Second Amendment, and you talked about it in absolutist terms. And then we discussed the First Amendment, which does have provisions that it's not absolute. And so I'm just wondering, in context, you speak vehemently against any controls whatsoever on the Second Amendment, but despite that, part of the class noted that you can't take that concealed weapon on federal property. I think you said you don't even pull on school
That's not my
grounds.
opinion, that's Florida state statute.
I know, but where do you move in this discussion on guns and safety and
I
society?
should be able to take my gun anywhere unless it's on somebody's personal property, because don't you have control over your personal property? But other than that, why shouldn't I take my gun to these other places? I believe the Second Amendment is inviolate, but I know that there's other people, a lot of them wearing black robes and speaking Latin, have said there's other things involved with that. It's free speech as well. They have considered law to get rid of all those places where you can't. You remember 15 places where you can't carry a gun? Now, I'm okay with not carrying a gun in jail. Remember that one? I'm okay with leaving that right up in there. Yeah, I am. We have to go back to the original. My founding fathers, the Constitution, the Second Amendment was supposed to be very, very simple for us all to understand. I have a right to keep and bear arms. It doesn't say what, where. I think we should lean towards everywhere rather than nowhere. But isn't that always the struggle? Nowhere, guns, everywhere guns. I'm very, very pro Second Amendment. But I understand this. If we don't have the Second Amendment, the rest of them are gone. I hope I cleared some of that up. I appreciate you coming to my class.
I have a question. My wife and I were in a movie theater. I don't think it was in Florida, but it was some other state. We're from Maryland. And somebody walked in with a gun strapped across his chest. And you didn't talk about non-concealed. So what was the story there?
I don't know the laws in that state. I know a lot of states have open carry. I don't know what their restrictions are. Here's where I feel about open carry. If they put it up for a vote, I'd vote yes. But I would never do it. I don't want people seeing my gun. I think it's very off-putting to a lot of people. And I think that rather than a in-your-face kind of an argument, I'd rather bring people to my pro-gun side through rational, logical argument, rather than here's my gun, kiss my butt. But if they passed it, and that's the way you want to do it, right on. Why not? Why not? Are the guns evil in and of themselves? Of course not.
You also make yourself the first option in the target.
Greg, you hear that? You make yourself a target. There's at least one case that I know of, it wasn't in Florida, where a guy got robbed because he had his gun hanging out. And where do bad guys get guns, y'all? Steal from you. They don't go to shoot straight or shooter's world, because they've got to answer this question. You know, and one of the questions is, are you a fugitive from justice? I'd love to be around when that guy goes, yes.
In the case of.
You talked a lot about when you're pulled over in Florida, you don't have to answer anything. But you do have to produce your license and registration, don't you?
Yes. License, registration, proof of insurance, absolutely. Because you have, remember when you signed that license, you agreed to a lot of things. You agreed. Here's a little trivia question. Why is it you can walk down your street and never have to give your name to a law enforcement officer, ever? When you get pulled over, you have to identify yourself. Here's why. Driving has been deemed to be a privilege. Now, I could argue against that, but that's what it is. And with privileges comes certain back and forth. Yet you have to produce those documents because you have entered into basically a contract with the state of Florida. That's what you're kind of doing. And of course, the other side of that, if you don't want to do that, don't drive. Now, of course, that's a ridiculous other side.
I have a question. You mentioned personal property and the right to prohibit somebody coming on your personal property with a weapon. Where do you determine if it's an open venue or an open concert in a park?
Well, other than in the Florida statute, there's 15 paragraphs of places where you can't carry a gun, very, very well defined. And if you go into those places with a gun, you're committing a crime, so you don't do it. Well, a couple of years ago, the state of Florida, Department of Agriculture, issued an opinion that's in a brochure that you don't get anymore, that says any private business, private property can tell you no to their guns, no to guns. And I don't know where it came from, but I'm thinking maybe it's under the same general principle that businesses are allowed to control your behavior, right? If you go into a bank with hat and sunglasses on, what do they tell you to do? And if you don't take them off, you got to get out. So maybe it's under that. I avoid places where I can't carry my gun. You guys agree?
First, I'd like to thank you for being here. I think you are outstanding.
My mama loves me too.
Thank you, and you can buy me a drink later. I have a question.
Yeah.
Why is it I can walk into a restaurant that has a bar? I can carry if I sit in the restaurant, but not at the bar.
Because Florida state statute says that.
But it's nonsensical.
Listen, man, it's the government. Government. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense, but that's the current law. Now, the reason you don't carry guns into bars, yeah, now listen, your muscles, your goggles, it's all bad. But Florida state statute says you can't carry a gun into, even if you, and I use this example, I don't know if you remember this, but a couple years ago, my wife and I went to a Chili's right after church on Sunday, and we get out of church late. Some of you know this, if you get out of church late, you're not getting in the restaurant. So I go in, and the young lady says, "Oh, we don't have a table, would you like to wait?" It's a problem for me, because I am armed. I had a gun before church, I had a gun during church, still got my gun on.
I don't think you can be in the same section as the bar, even if they got.
Right, yeah, because, yeah, and a good point as a follow-up, not even in the same section, because the wording is even kind of vague. Every restaurant that has a bar has a license to have that bar, and it defines where that bar is. There's a diagram somewhere.
But if you're a retired police captain, aren't you allowed, do you have your badge on you? Aren't you allowed to?
No, being a retired cop, I can't violate state law. Now, as a retired cop, I maintain my shooting qualification. I'm allowed to carry anywhere in the country, irrespective of other states' laws, but that does not include private property. So if private property said you can't carry a gun, I have to abide by that. I went to New York City a couple of years ago to on a trip with some relatives. My wife said, "You're gonna fly with your gun? Because you can fly with your gun in your checked luggage." And I said, "Ain't no way I'm carrying my gun in New York City." She says, "You can carry anywhere." I'm not gonna try, though. I'm gonna go to Rikers Island. That sounds familiar. So he's got that.
What are your rights and obligations on rifles and shotguns?
In pertaining to what? Owning them or keeping them? Or?
Just carrying them around, owning them.
You can have in your car anywhere you want to?
No permits required?
Oh, no. Florida. You know what? Florida was, and Florida is, still a very rural state. You know, you get outside of the cities, I mean, it's nothing but woods. And that goes back to those days where we used to see y'all in the back window of every pickup truck we ever saw, rifle or shotgun. I used to see them when I was in high school at Chamberlain High School, which is, back then was in the woods. Now, as I mentioned in my class, is putting your AK-47 on the front seat next to you, is that the best place to carry that gun? No, but you could. It's not the best place to carry the gun.
Right?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Oh, she let you talk.
We recently moved from Georgia.
Yeah.
Did you discuss reciprocity of
Yes,
concealed carry?
Yes, in the state of Florida, if have a license, your state is good in, I think, 35 other states. I think the list changes every once in a while. Now, in Georgia, you can have a gun in the bar. I'm following that closely. Because where was the phrase, hey, y'all watch this, invented?
So we don't need a Florida.
Here's what I suggest. If you're going to be going to another state with your gun, take 5 minutes and find out what the gun laws are in that state. Now, back when we were kids, remember, we couldn't even find Florida law much less anybody else's law.
And the one you passed through.
Yeah, and the one because you're about 5 minutes away from knowing everything about the gun laws in that state. So I think it's incumbent upon all of us, even though our permit is good in a lot of other states, I think we still, as good citizens, need to know those guns. There may be some little twist in there that you need to know about. Maybe the deadly force laws are a little bit different. Every state's a little bit different.
Right here.
How many guns can you have in your car? Just check.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
My friend is telling me, since I have a concealed carry, that I need to hire a lawyer or have a lot of money for insurance, because I'll get in trouble if I ever have to use my gun, especially outside my home.
It's a good idea to have something. It's okay if I mention a name of a place, something. USLawShield.com. I've got one of their cards in my wallet.
What do they do?
Well, you subscribe, it's $11 a month, and if you need an attorney, you pull out your card, and there's an 800 number, you call them, and they'll be there within a certain amount of time, your attorney. It's a good idea, y'all, because whether you've done it right or done it wrong, when that gun is smoking, where are your emotions? You're a mess, aren't you? You're jacked up on fear and adrenaline, and what's the first thing to go when you're nervous? And what are the murder police doing? Write it all down. So back when I was a street sergeant, I had a couple guys in my squad that were involved in deadly force encounters, different times, but here's what they always ask for on the radio. I need my supervisor, I need fire rescue, and I need my PBA attorney. Having done nothing wrong, who do you need? You need somebody. It's a good question. I think $11 a month, $12. I spent that much on a sandwich yesterday at Wawa and a Coke.
Are there any other questions?
It's a great idea, but you don't have to. But the thing is, could we, even if we did everything right, can we afford an attorney for that? I challenge you, call any attorney. It used to be in the yellow pages, right? Whatever they call them now. Call up an attorney and go, listen, what would you charge me if I say I shot somebody and I need defense? Here's what you hear. You hear the hand cover the phone and you hear in a hushed voice, honey, we're getting that new boat. It's a great idea.
There's a new, relatively new issue that's popped up that perplexes me. And it has to do with giving guns to teachers in schools.
Yeah. Arming teachers.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I just wonder what.
I got to tell you, I'm very up on the fence on that. I don't know where my opinion is going to fall. I always try to defer to the fact that they're grown human beings with no felony record. Why shouldn't they? But I don't know. I just don't know where my head's at on arming teachers. I don't know. I'm glad I'm not involved in that. I'm glad I don't have to make that decision. That's a tough one. Really a tough one.
Any other questions? Okay, I want to thank Mr. Bartlett for coming here today, and we have a very knowledgeable, learned a lot. And this kind of ends the formal part of our meeting. We're going to have an open discussion if you'd like. If anybody wants to comment on anything they heard today, anything about firearms, gun control, Second Amendment, anything you want to talk to the group about, we'll give everybody a minute or two, or each person that wants to speak, the opportunity to do so. Does anybody have any comments to make? Where's Lenny? Did he leave? Okay. Okay, John, you have a comment?
What is the problem with all the people calling the cops every time they hear a gunshot? Can they shoot their gun whenever they want and they're not hurting anything?
Anybody have anything to say about that?
Is that just referring to like wildfire around the community?
Let's ask him. Well,
People are shooting up in the air.
people are shooting. I mean, I had a bullet come.
Down someplace, we had one come through the roof of our night.
You
Yes.
saw him shooting it?
No, we didn't see, we didn't hear it, but we came up in the morning, came out in the morning, and it was a bullet, there was a hole in the roof of our lanai, and we found the, guess the shell casing, whatever, on the ground. We called the police. They came a few hours later and said, it's not the first time it's happened, nothing we could really do about it, you know.
Some of them are far away, though. I mean,
Probably far away, but
you didn't
you
hear
know.
that one? Am I saying, you didn't hear it?
I think it happened during the night, so I sleep very well. Any other comments? Any commentary from anybody else? Okay, so, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Alice.
Let's not forget.
Alice is a retired police officer from New York City.
Thank you. Let's not forget that to secure our weapons, because there's been some unfortunate situations where a grandchild in mind.
Yeah, gun safety certainly is a major issue. Would you like to, yeah, you can.
All right, guns and kids in the house. There's a Florida statute that says if you keep a loaded gun in the house, and you've got people under the age of 16 years old, that you have to keep them in certain places when you're not with the gun. If you're not carrying your gun, or if your gun is not under your control, you have to lock it away and put it in different places. So there's a Florida state statute that covers that. And you know, most laws are written because something bad happened. You know, you can lock, if my kid got hurt because something I did, I'll tell you what, going to jail for misdemeanor is last of my concern. But there it is. There's a Florida state statute that says if you're not with a gun, if you're not carrying your gun, it's got to be 3 different places. One of which says in a place which a reasonable person would believe to be secure. That's where it all fails right there. A reasonable person would believe to be secure.
Okay, I think that's it. Unless there's any other comments that you would like to make? Yes, Charlie.
I'm originally from Michigan, and when I took...
I'm from Michigan, and when we took the training, which you have to do there 2 days for concealed weapons permits, one of the things they advise, per Michigan law, if you're stopped and you've got a concealed weapon on you or in the car, you have to advise a law enforcement officer. It's not to say, hey, I'm carrying a gun, but they have your concealed weapons permit and your license in one hand. And when the police officer comes, hand that to them, don't mention the word gun. Wow.
I wouldn't do it at all. I wouldn't. When it comes to your Florida state permit, you only have to provide it on specific demand. I don't recommend sticking it in there with the rest of your stuff, because what are you really saying? But you could. Now, I want to...
But my point is, don't say gun.
Well, I know, I got that. But my point would be, why would you broach the subject at all if you don't have to, knowing that it's going to cause a broad range of reaction? Because that's basically what you're saying, is there's a gun. And listen, y'all, I was on the street. I was on the street for 15 years, and back and forth, you know, as I rose through the ranks, went back and forth patrol. But I'm a citizen again, and as a citizen, why should I say something I don't have to say just because? I don't want that. I'm not breaking any laws. Y'all, if I break the law, call the police, have them come fetch me. But other than that, leave me alone.
So,
Just a moment.
Hey, do they really say, I'm walking here? Do they say that up in New York City? I'm walking here.
So you mentioned that a person can have their weapon in a holster with a clip, correct? And You don't have to say anything, but I was a law enforcement.
Right.
And if I see a weapon in the vehicle,
Well, it's a mess, isn't it? If you see the-
yes, and the first thing that you have to understand is you know who I am, but I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
So my suggestion is, you have your rights, but most of the time, the police officer's reaction is based on your attitude.
That's a great answer, but let me add this. Don't have your gun where it's visible.
Exactly.
Period. Where do people mostly keep the gun in the car, do you think? Glove compartment. Where do you keep your registration? First, don't put your documents in the glove compartment. Lock them up in the trunk. Nothing says you have to have them up front. And where's the bad guy going to go when he breaks into your car? Glove compartment. Now it's got your name, your address. They used to have birthday on there. I don't know if they do it anymore. But yeah, if the gun's going to be visible, then you certainly need to preempt. I absolutely agree with that. But let's solve that problem by not having the gun visible and not having the gun where your hand is going to be anywhere near it. Because even back when I was on the streets, pro-gun as I am, if somebody went in their glove box to get their registration, and it's being held down by that 45 auto with the extended magazine and the red dot scope, I'm going to stick something in their ear. You wouldn't blame me. So let's preempt all that by not having the gun where people can see your gun. You don't want to have the conversation.
But if you get pulled over and you jump out to go to the trunk to get your stuff.
You don't jump out.
Oh.
Write this down. Sir, may I step out of my vehicle? Let's go ahead and make a note. Listen, I keep mine in a locked, I've got it in my trunk, I've got a little lockable box that if I can't have my gun where I'm going, I lock it in there. And there's my registration, I have 2 of them. I don't carry my documents up front because the bad guy will steal your documents. You ever had your identity stolen? It's a nightmare. I'd rather get street punched in a robbery than have my identity stolen. So lock it somewhere else, but don't have the gun visible unless you're willing to go through the whole thing. I agree with you.
Okay, thanks again, Brett. I have some of Brett's business cards. If you're interested, he has a private investigation company and does a lot of exciting things. So if you want to get in touch with him, please pick up one of the cards. We'll put it on the table on the way out. I just want to mention that the next club membership meeting will be on Monday, April 22nd. The guest speaker will be Nathan A. Emery, who is the Deputy Special Agent in charge of the Tampa office of the Homeland Security Investigations Office. It's going to be another very interesting meeting. It'll be tough to make it as good as tonight's, but we're going to try. And also, just keep in mind that our meetings are always on the 4th Monday of the month. Thank you all for coming, and good night.